Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel, and today we're going to be building a walled garden in The Sims 4. So this is a traditional walled garden like Hampton Court Palace gardens that you see here, and inspired by other similar gardens around the UK. So walled gardens were traditional for big wealthy landowners back in medieval times and beyond, and they were really a big display of wealth. So that's what I was trying to achieve here today. So I made this garden as part of Music Psych Fan's Sensational Summer Garden Challenge. I'll link her channel in the card above and also in the description below as well, so don't forget to check her out. And my chosen flower for this garden was roses, so you'll see later on that there are a lot of roses included in this build. And the reason for that is that a lot of these walled gardens had roses. They would always be very formal, very symmetrical, and they would have different varieties of otherwise the same flower in them quite often. So one thing that you often saw in these kind of walled historic gardens was a greenhouse in latter years. Now this is something that I believe came in with the Victorian sort of era, and again, another status symbol was to have lots of these hothouse flowers that only usually grew in exotic places. So you needed a greenhouse to protect them from the British weather, the British frost and the winters, to ensure that they grew. So I've got that on the left-hand side of this arch, and on the right-hand side, in view of symmetry, I've put another building, which is what I decided to make into a public bathroom, because I have made this lot into a community lot and it is a park. So I've included everything in here, which you'll see when we get to the end, that is needed to make it a valid park. So here I'm just putting some more of this castle wall, which is the wall from the castle kit, and then using the greenhouse doors from the greenhouse kit to make the greenhouse that I've just described to you over here as well. So removing the inner roof so that it is like a proper greenhouse with the tall ceilings, the high roofs, to make maximum use of the sun, because here in the UK, as you may know, sun can sometimes be a little bit scarce, and when it does show up, it's not even that strong. So we do need to make the most of it with all of this glass. So after I was happy with the exteriors of these sections of the garden, I moved on to the flooring inside, and again I have used the flooring from the medieval castle kit, and then we move straight on to getting these bathrooms sorted. So again, that castle kit coming in handy here with that massive door, and I'll be using the windows in just a moment as well. And they just looked so good with the walls and the doors. I was really pleased with that section of it, of the build, and I felt like it really came together with the aesthetic that I was going for. So I really was happy with these choices. Inside, using that same wallpaper but without the vines and ivy growing on it, so obviously it's an interior wall instead of exterior, and making use of the medieval packed doors as well. So then moving into the actual bathrooms themselves, I try to make them look as old as possible. So I've gone with these traditional high cistern toilets and the sinks with the traditional taps as well. Mirror in each cubicle, and really there's not anything that they needed outside of the cubicles, but I put the sinks there as well and the vanity so that it looked a bit more like a communal area. I did think about putting a sofa there, but I thought perhaps too many people would come in and just sit there when you're using it for gameplay. So I didn't want to go too mad with the decorating of this area. I didn't want to put in any soft furnishings or anything like that that would make it feel less like it was a communal old space. So for lighting, I used these wall sconces. Again, I really wanted to go for more of an older feel, and I felt that that kind of did the job. And the counters in that communal area, again, I think these are the ones from the vampire pack. Somebody will correct me down below if I'm wrong, I'm sure. And then just a few accessories to make it look like somebody was looking after the place as well. Like maybe there's a janitor or a housekeeper or something that goes around during the day and just make sure everything is neat and tidy. So once that was done, I knew that I wanted my centerpiece of the garden to be a fountain. And because I've done this as a room in order to get the tiles right and everything in the right place and to get the trim on there in the way that I wanted it to, I had to take away a bit of the wall because otherwise I couldn't put the fountain here. It said that the ceiling was too close. So I've then put that on the junction of the east to west and north to south paths, and then just neatened everything up so that it looks more intentional, more like it's supposed to be there, including the pavement around the edge of the pool and the pool trim as well. So I also wanted to make it look like it had been there a while, so I've put some lilies in the pool and then the nice fountain in the middle. In hindsight, I could have sized that up, and I think perhaps I should have, but it still works as the size that it is as well. Now moving on to the first bit of greenery in this garden, and it was this sort of tunnel made out of wedding arches. And this is something that I knew I wanted to do right from the beginning when I started thinking about making this garden. And it is something that is in the Hampton Court Palace gardens. If you're in the sort of sunken garden, it's to the right, and there's a path that goes along the side of it, and the whole thing is a tunnel of these climbing plants, whether it's climbing roses or other climbing plants. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but it was something I was very certain that I wanted to include in this garden. And I've had them leading us up to the fountain, which you then come out and see these nice straight hedges here as well. And again, this is something that I wanted to be very formal. I didn't want to use the bushes that have got the more rugged look about them. They're not so precise. And again, I also knew that I wanted to put a pergola in the side as well as a little covered seating area. So you can see me doing this here. Now I won't show the full detail of me doing the pergola because I do have a pergola making tutorial as a separate video, which I will link up above here as well, to show you how to build those. But this one, again, I was sure that I wanted to include from the beginning. So it's one of the very first things that I had planned in my head that I knew I would include. And as you can see there, I've started by including the chess table in there, which was part of the requirements for having a garden lot, although I think I did move around with that a bit later on, so it didn't stay exactly where it is. So here you can see me putting in some more of these hedges and just making the symmetrical areas so that they do complement each other. And I started off as well trying to put the paths in with terrain paint, but it really wasn't working out how I wanted to, so I switched over to the paths, same as on the main paths as well. And again, those were exactly the same in each of these 4 sections of the garden, as you can see here now. So I've cut out quite a lot of the footage of doing that because it was quite samey, but you can really see the after effect. So once I got the layout of the garden, I moved on to decorating the greenhouse, and I put a mixture of things in here. So I've got some just ornamental plants that you can see me putting in here, not ones that you can interact with, but ones that I thought looked like they would grow in this hotter kind of area. So we've got some palms there, and we've got some hanging plants, and we've got some other potted plants. And I do also end up putting in here some of the planters as well, and you can see here is the flower arranging table with some decorative plant pots on there as well. I still wanted to have people to have things to do here that weren't necessarily strictly there just because it's this park community lot. And again, it was just decorating it to try and make it look like it was actually used, like people were planting things here maybe ready to put into the main garden, and decorating it. So we've got the seedlings here, so those are getting ready to be planted when there's space for them and the time of year's right. So it took me a little while to do this and to get everything where I wanted, so it didn't look like it was too just uniform. I wanted everything to look cluttered and used, and I was playing around with the placement of these shelves for quite a while. As I saw something else I wanted to include, I would just move it around to kind of accommodate that. But I did enjoy making this greenhouse as well. I really am pleased with how this little area turned out, and I think it will end up being quite a useful space for anybody that uses this lot. And these kind of window dressings, these vines, I think really finished it off quite nicely, so I put those around most of the edge of the greenhouse as well, but not all the way. I didn't think that that looked terribly realistic. So we've got some of it there. So that is that finished, and then I moved on to actually decorating the space that I'd created. So there were a few things that I wanted to use here, and I definitely wanted some statues and ornamental type things before I started putting in plants. So again, going with the symmetrical, I just kept it as the same item in each place. And here by the fountain, I had the female statues facing their male counterparts there, along with the formal seating area. I couldn't quite find a nook within the formal garden section that made it look right, so I moved and put that in the corner of what will become the kiddies seating area later, followed by putting those lion's head water features on the side of each of the east and west arches. So then, in order to make it look a bit more overgrown, I've put these sort of window ledge plants all the way around the top, and I tried to overlap them a little bit so that they didn't look like it was exactly the same going round. So some of them do overlap a little bit, not all of them, and I put these individually around the top, as you can see. Now this did take a little while, but thankfully there wasn't too much in the way of corners and things to navigate round, so that did help me a little bit. And yep, it's quite a large garden. I forget what size this lot is, but as you can see, it's literally all the way along there. So that's that section. And then I started on moving up to making things looking a bit more natural, putting some vines. Those are some vampires, packs of vines there, as well as other sections. There was a real mixture. So yeah, you've got the cottage living ones going in, and also the wisteria around the greenhouse. Again, that was something I thought would look natural and would have been used quite a lot back in the olden days. So here we go again, some more ivy and vines going on in other sections just to keep that theme going. And then I moved on to decorating the top of the pergola, and making that look quite natural as well. So I used the low-lying yellow flowers for this, and also the white sort of it kind of looks like a mini hydrangea, but it's not that. I forget what it's called, but that's from one of the other game packs as well. I forget which one it is. Not the one that's got the camping. I think it is the one that's got the camping. Okay, so anyway, then I moved back around. I was jumping around quite a bit. I knew again I wanted to put the wishing well in, so that has gone in by the toilet block. And I also knew that I needed to put in a swing set to finish off the park requirements, and some benches as well, so people can sit around the fountain and look there and rest and just take in the serenity. So we've got a nice seating area next to the swings, and I'm putting in some more bushes to again just make things look a little bit more established before moving on to the formal section. So I wanted to include some topiary, and again I just kept it the same one each time I've put it in, so I won't show you all 4 of these sections, and I used Alt Place to get those exactly where I wanted them so that they weren't just set right on the grid there, which I think did make a bit of a difference actually. So moving on from that, I wanted to put some plaques in on the wall as some decoration, one in each section. And in medieval times or thereabouts, they might have put in Stations of the Cross if the garden belonged to a nunnery or a monastery, or they might have been pastoral scenes if it was a country estate, to show that the owners were interested in the land and the countryside thereabouts. So I thought those were quite a nice little touch. And moving on from that, we went on to putting in some terrain paint. Terrain paint's not something that I've done an awful lot of, so it did take me a while to get it exactly as I wanted. And I still wanted to have some sort of formal areas over here by the buildings, and then the earth and mud I made a little bit less precise, just so that it looked again more natural and like the plants had actually been growing there as well. And I think that this is something that I'll get better at as time goes by. I don't know about you, but this is something that I've really struggled with, is the terrain paint side of things in the past. So yeah, that's something I am hoping to improve on as time goes by. And once I was more or less happy with that, that's when I started putting in all the roses. And I did miss out a bit of the footage here where I started doing this. I didn't hit record when I thought I did, but but you can see that I've put everything in sort of layered over each other so that it does look more full. And on the side walls here, I decided to put 3 colours of roses in to give it a bit more variety and depth, and I did do that on all 4 sections as well. So the middle kind of garden part, I made that again more ornamental, and statues did go in this section, and the hedges I used were not as trimmed and clipped as around the outsides of those sections. And again, it was very similar kind of statues that I used. I wanted to use a different one in each section, but there weren't 4 that I felt really went together nicely. So in the end, I did just use these 2, one on one side of the garden and one design on the other as well. And here you can see that I'm doing the same thing on the other sections of this quadrangle here as well, and sizing down those hedges so that they didn't overpower the rest and also fit in with this smaller grassy area in a more compact and tailored way. So once we completed doing that first section and getting it exactly how I wanted it, all that remained for the main body of the garden was to repeat the process for the other 3 sections of this quadrangle. So I kept with the roses theme. The whole point of this garden was that the flower it was built around was the rose, so that's why there are so many rose bushes in here. Part of the challenge that Amber set us was that we had to choose a particular flower to base our garden around, so I chose the rose because it happens to be my favourite flower. So the last part of the garden to work on were these 2 end areas, one where the play area and the chess tables are, and the other one on the outskirts of the greenhouse and toilet block. And again, I was just putting in some more foliage to try and make it look a little bit more established, like it had been there a long time. And I was also putting in some more decoration around the edges of these clipped bushes to make it look again more established, more like it'd been there for a long time. And I decided to use these rose bushes from the formal garden pack. I forget what I'm just rubbish at remembering the pack names, especially when it comes to the smaller ones, but this was the the formal backyard garden stuff. What's it called? Romantic garden pack. I think that's the one, and that's the same one that a lot of these statues came from as well. And then finally finishing it off with some little tables to sit at with some outdoor chairs as well. Again, just to give it more of that park kind of feeling, somewhere the Sims can relax and meet their friends as well as playing their chess to get their logic up or other activities. And then by the bathrooms, again, putting in a few different kind of flowers. And here I did want to use something that was a little bit different from the roses that's in the more formal section. So I chose these yellow and purple bushes, and I felt that those went quite well with the overhanging ones at the top of the wall, and then put in some underlying ground cover there as well to make it blend in nicely and not just be quite a stark difference from the gravel to the earth and the bushes. Then putting on some more vines and ivy onto the walls of this part of the building as well, trying to make it not look quite so stark. And there are places where you don't need to have those up there, but I feel like it is a good thing to have in quite a few places, especially on this older looking build. So then back to the gazebo area, and I put a table and chairs in there, and then in the end brought the chess tables outside onto the lawn and added in an extra one, so there were 2 of them there. And I did decide to make this a gravelled area as well, so that it was just a little bit more weather friendly, so they're not sat in soggy grass if it rained or something like that. And given that this is in Windenburg, it would be rainy quite a lot, I should imagine. So edging this area with boxed plants there just to kind of frame it. And again, because they're square boxes, they do keep that formal kind of feeling. And finally, I decided to put some stone paving slabs on top of the roof of the toilet block to finish that off. And then here is a quick overview of the formal garden as well. So let's drop in to have a tour. Okay, so here we are at the entrance to the walled garden or secret garden, depending on what you want to call it. And behind this magnificent arch, we have a whole load of arches made out of trees and plants that we can walk through, giving a very tranquil atmosphere. And that is leading us to the fountain, which is beautifully framed by these two statues, and we can see the way out to the back entrance as well. So of course we've got these nice lilies on the fountain, we've got some benches to sit on and admire the garden, and then of course going to the left we have the path leading to one section of the formal gardens. And here are all the roses with the statue as the center point of that, and the plaques on the wall as well. So in true historic fashion, this is all very symmetrical, just as they would have liked it. So moving on, we have the chess area and the gazebo covered in flowers and looking beautiful and lush. And then behind that we have the kiddies area swing set and also the seating area for the adults. So again, just sit and relax in this peaceful garden. So we've got the matching rose garden on this section, and then also on the other side of the arches. And actually this is rather a lovely view, isn't it? So we've got the other exit, the west exit, with these lion heads framing the door. We've got some tables to sit at and have some lunch. We've got the old part of the building left over, perhaps it was a monastery or something like that, which now houses the public bathrooms. And we also have the traditional greenhouse, which would have housed lots of tropical plants that were a sign of wealth to people that had these kind of gardens back in the day. So let's just get an overall picture here. There we go. So there's a bit of a top-down view, so you can see the layout and how it all fits together. So I really hope you've enjoyed this build. I've enjoyed making it, and I really enjoyed taking part in Amber's sensational summer garden challenge. So if you haven't followed her already, do check out her channel. I'll put a link below, and I'll see you again next time.